Um, Hi everyone, welcome to the first webinar organized by IESL UK Chapter. So I think everyone familiar with what is IESL, but UK Chapter we started last year. So this is our first webinar. There are a few more planned, but this is our first webinar we are organized. So today our speaker is Dr. Varuna De Silva. So Varuna is a inaugural thematic research lead for AI and digital technologies for the UK Parliament. So he also the director for the Machine Intelligence Lab at Loughborough University London. So Varuna is one of the very active expert in the AI field. So I can't think of any other person who better person to start this webinar series. So Varuna also worked in the industry before coming to academic. He was a senior engineer at Apical Limited, which is now the ARM. As you may know, it's the microprocessor design firm. So he has contributed, and his algorithms are patent one, powering million of devices globally. And Varuna has around 10 PhD graduates under his supervision. So, as I said, he will talk about his experience on the AI side. So he has involved in many different industry projects. So he will share his knowledge and experience on those, and also how we can, harness AI for our Sri Lankan applications like agriculture, tourism, and green technologies. So before I hand over to Varuna, a bit of housekeeping. So please mute your microphones if you are not talking. And I will post a link in the chat. So I know some of you may have already registered with the main IESL website, but please fill your details in this form which we'll use for future IESL correspondence. And lastly, please post all your questions on the chat. So we will come to those questions at the end. So we are planning to have this talk about 40 to 45 minutes, then open up for the questions. So with that, without further ado, I invite Varuna to start the talk. Varuna.
Thanks, Deepal. Let me try to share this.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Varuna. Oh, it's coming up, I think. Yeah, can.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to give this lecture. It's an honor to take the inaugural lecture on this series. As Deepal mentioned, I'm Varuna. I'm a associate professor with Loughborough University. I did my first degree in University of Monitor, electronic and telecoms engineering. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my research that I do within Loughborough University, and then based on certain recent discussions I've had with Sri Lankan colleagues of mine and contacts, I'm going to present a few opportunities I believe are possible with Sri Lanka and to improve things around them, right? So what I will do is for the first 20 minutes or so, I will talk about my own research and then go on to talk about the opportunities, and thereafter we'll take some questions. Right. So first of all, I would like to thank my team because these are the people who really do this research for me. I have around 10 PhD students. Sorry, I don't have one figure of them, one photo of one of the people. I've had a few other colleagues who have gone on to accomplish different things in life after they have graduated. It's these people. So I want to thank them, first of all, because they are the people who are behind the scene. They are the intelligent people behind me. So would also like to thank my sponsors, Research Councils of the UK, Innovate UK, and few of these companies, the Chelsea Football Club, Total Manufacturing, and Dallas Mavericks NBA team, who have supported me and my research over the past 10 years or so. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about. I will talk about two research awards from research councils here that has allowed me to set my team up here in Loughborough University, and then to talk a little bit about our vision as to where we are going ahead with our research and what artificial intelligence means to us, and then to talk about few opportunities in Sri Lanka. So to start with, for us, artificial intelligence is about creating very complex decision-making skills in in computers. Now, if you take football as an example, this is an example where you have very complex decision making that is taking place. So if you think about this player, how many decisions they have to make in very short time spans. So split second decisions make difference in the end game. So quite a lot of decisions to make. Now, this is the sort of intelligence which we want to build into computers. Right now, it may look a little bit distant. Some would argue there's a quite a lot that is going on in the human brain when it comes to this sort of decisions. But then, if you think about Robocop, which has been a competition that has been running for a couple of decades, perhaps. Now, their objective, their goal is by 2050 to have a team of robots who will beat the World Cup winning football team, World Cup winning human football team, according to the FIFA rules. Now that sounds very ambitious if you think about it. 2050, so it's just 25 years from now on, we are going to see robots competing against humans to beat the human football team. Now this is the vision of this roboticist. Now if you think about it, is it really possible? We don't know. I would like to think it's not. Maybe it's a little bit too ambitious, but this is the nature of ambition that we have as global citizens of doing AI research. Now, why do you do that? Because if you develop technologies like that, these things can be used in many other areas. So, for example, Robocop, for example, has had several competitions for rescue, for work, and so on. So Amazon warehouse robots were built by a team who used to develop these robot footballers, right? So it's all about looking into the intelligence, trying to mimic the intelligence required for this kind of footballers, and then trying to replicate that in machines is what these people try to do. And in many ways, this was the nature of my first project that was funded by research councils. I was supported by Chelsea Football Club. Now, the big question they asked me was, we can measure how good players run, or how fast they run, or how strong they are. There are lots of measurements like that. But what we can't measure is how good they make decisions under pressure. Now, because that is what differentiates a professional player from a non-professional player. Sometimes spectators know better than the players who play the game. So for example, when we watch cricket matches, we would always commentate that person could have done this, that person could have done that, right? Now, sometimes spectators tend to have better knowledge about the game. But what makes the athlete different or the player different is that they can translate that knowledge under pressure into action in the middle of the game, right? So that is the difference. So if you can measure that, uh, can we uh, can we create better players? Can we train them to do better? Was the first research question that I tried to answer. Now, that project was ended a couple of years ago. What we did is we crunched a decade worth of tracking data in football. So what happens is in every Premier League match, each and every player and the ball position is being tracked 10 frames a second, and that data is stored. Now, what we did is we collected this data, uh, and then for each playing position, like the forwards, the midfielders, and defenders, we created artificial models. And then what happened, what you see on the right-hand side of this visual is that after you create these artificial models, we use that artificial model as a benchmark to compare how a real player played, right? So what happens is each of this player is now being tracked and compared against a computational benchmark. So now that acts as a measure of how good this team played during this time. Now, this is an example where we tried to create AI models using data so that it translates onto something useful. Now, moving on from there, this is the recent project that I'm part of, and we have a couple of research assistants working on this. This is funded under the National Security and Defense Program of the UK. Now, this is a project where we try to develop an autonomous drone system so that it can go and detect soldiers in a battlefield who are wounded, right? And these soldiers are wounded to different levels. And then how do you collect appropriate information from this battlefield and provide this information to a medic there? Medics are the people who are attending to these wounded soldiers. And then how do you collect this data? So the challenges we are trying to deal with are these humans are camouflaged, right? Because they wear these army uniforms, which are very closer to the nature, and they are camouflaged. So detecting people are difficult. And then collecting data, vital sign information from their body-worn sensors and through cameras and IR sensors is a very difficult thing, because if you can think about it, it's a contested battlefield. So how do you control this system of drones is my research question within this multi-party project. So this again is another example of the kind of projects that I'm doing. And going into the most recent project, we are interested in identifying, detecting, and measuring human activity without the use of cameras. Again, for you can think about this for healthcare reasons, for security and defense reasons, where you cannot put cameras in a certain place, but you want to understand what sort of activity that is going on in a certain place. So how do you do that? How do you detect that? So this is an activity that we are trying to build here about. So what we do is we use these wireless signals that you have. So right now around you, you may have a lot of wireless signals, especially Wi-Fi signals. Now these Wi-Fi signals tend to interact with your body and have reflections. So what we do is we detect these reflected waveforms and try to detect the minor variations in these Doppler frequencies to identify what are the activities they do. So there's significant development in this area to a point where you can detect what people write on a piece of paper just by looking at the waveform. Now, my job here is to scale these things for real-world applications. Now, one of the significant challenges here is that lots of little work has been done in very controlled environments. But when you try to translate these artificial intelligence mechanisms into real world, it's often a very difficult task. It's extremely difficult to even do something different in an environment that it was not trained on. So we are looking at scaling this artificial intelligence. I, along with people from Imperial, are the people who are leading this project, and along with some other stakeholders, we are trying to build this project up. So that's another area. So these are some of the major projects that I'm part of. And with this, I'm going to take you down just a whistle-stop tour of what sort of activities that I'm currently pursuing. So I have a couple of neuroscientists who work with me to build AI models of how the brain works. What these researchers try to do is to learn how different parts of the brain interact when somebody is trying to do some intelligent activity. Now, why we want to do that is to learn how the human brain interprets information and reacts to certain environments and tasks. Surprisingly, we don't know a lot about how our human brain works. So its information is very limited. So, but this, our brain, is the benchmark of intelligence for us, right? I mean, it's a very energy efficient device if you think about it as a machine, and it does things that we can't even think about on how it works. So what my students do is they try to understand different activities in the brain and how different regions of the brain work. And then our objective is then to go and replicate these things on semiconductor devices. So we try to learn what is going on in the brain through what we call our EEG signals. These are some electrodes that you place on the skull of the people, just externally, and then try to detect electrical signals that you can sense of the skull. But these electrical signals that you sense of the skull are a summary of what is going on internally in the brain. So there's quite a lot of information that is lost between the matter of the brain or the neurons and the skull. So what we want to do is we want to develop AI mechanisms to detect these minor signals that you see, right? Now, this is the sort of activity that I'm pursuing. This is because there are different branches of artificial intelligence. So when you come to replicate some sort of intelligence on machines, you need to have some sort of motivation. This is my motivation. This is where my students come in. And then we try to replicate these things on semiconductor devices. So this is because artificial intelligence is notorious to consume a lot of energy, and we want to make sure that it is extremely energy efficient. So at the same time, we want to see if there are things that are happening in the brain which can lead us into more general intelligence when it comes to development of these AI systems. So this is basically what you would see if you take a cross section of the brain in a certain area. Your brain activity is seen as a wave that is propagated, and these waves propagate and they interact with each other through superposition, and you see a pattern like this. And it is this pattern that you see is what is processing all our information and memory and everything. So what we try to do is, I work with certain physicists and semiconductor experts. What they try to do is they try to replicate similar kind of behavior on semiconductor devices. So we call this sort of systems neuromorphic systems because we try to take inspiration from the human brain. Going down this path, one of my PhD students are trying to develop what we call our autonomous clothes. If you take this piece of cloth, there are wearables. You can put sensors on it. but you can't put this cloth into a washing machine and wash it, right? Now, we want to develop systems. So material engineering is extremely developed, as you know. We have Sri Lankan scientists all around the world trying to find different forms of materials and ways of engineering these things. I work with another young scientist called Ishara Dharmasen from Loughborough itself. What they try to do is they try to come up with new devices that you can embed into the threads of these clothes, right? Now think about it. If you can have a piece of cloth that can sense your body, what is happening in your body, and it can compute what needs to be done. So that is what AI machines do, right? Machines, computers, what it tries to do is it takes sense the environment and makes decisions. Making decisions means to make computations, to compute things. And then convert that into some sort of action. So a good example I can give you is if you think about rehabilitation of people or people who are suffering from neurodegenerative diseases. They may have falls, right? They could be having falls. But if you can have sensing embedded into the clothes that they wear, so if you can detect their fall at the earliest possible stage when they are trying to lift themselves up off a seat that they are sitting on, if you can give a slight tension in the cloth so that your muscle is augmented, muscle power is augmented, you can stop that fall, right? That is how important this kind of technology could be, right? So this is all about wearables, but wearables going into another point where if you can get materials that have electrical properties onto which you can build systems like this in situ, so that you can have autonomous clothes, right? Your cloth can be a robot, basically. This is the sort of action framework that we are looking into with this sort of activity. So this is about building AI systems into the materials. So overall, our vision is to make sure that artificial intelligence that is motivated by our brain activity gets implemented into real world devices, mechanisms, and materials, right? That is my vision. I also have students who are working on large language models. It's worth to say a word about this because this is making lots of news at the moment, right? Your ChatGPT or Geminis, these are the LLMs. So this kind of techniques have brought AI into the forefront. It is making headlines because of these techniques. However, we should not be taken away by them. So these are specific area of AI, which can be developed from scratch by only a very small number of organizations in the world. So small organizations, what they can do is they can just take them and adopt these things. So this is, for me, these large language models are an extension of Google for me, right? It is the next evolution of the Google as we know it. Now, this is where, this is a good example where the computers, what the computers did is to go and take all the text that was ever written that is available on the internet and try to crunch it to a point where we started to see the patterns in our text that we wrote, right? If we write an essay, what is the pattern that you have? If you write a book, what is the pattern that you have? Based on that, now what we do is we ask questions. So for the computer, it is nothing but completing that sentence. So the question is seen as the starting of a sentence, and then it will continue to complete that sentence. So this is what happens in question answering situations in that you find in ChatGPT or other large language models. Now the problem with this kind of thing is that we don't know why it is developing this, right? Why it is providing the sort of outcome and that it is generating. What my research, the little things that my students have done, what we have come to realize is that they are not as general as one thinks they are, right? They tend to memorize quite a lot. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to build some sort of understanding into the methods. So how do you understand why it is making certain decisions based on the data that it is seeing, or based on the questions that is being asked, right? So large language models is very popular. The point is that they are not very understandable, so we have to be a bit careful about how we use these things. Finally, a PhD that we completed in collaboration with Civil Engineering Department at Loughborough University. These are what we call our digital twins. So this is where you have large hydrodynamic models, or the high-end simulation models, which civil engineers, or for that matter, mechanical engineers, have been working with. And this is a project where we tried to link these high-end simulation models with artificial intelligence models, so to optimize for flooding situations. So what the students studied is to see if we know how water flows during a flooding event, how do you make use of that model in real time to come up with better defense mechanisms? Like putting sandbags. In which places should we be putting sandbags? Or for that matter, if you think about it, if you are going to put water pumps in different places, how do you optimize the position of the water pump so that the water gets pumped out of the flooded environment as soon as possible? So this is an example where you have the traditional engineering know-how is combined with artificial intelligence to do things that are useful. So these are a few things that we are doing. We also call these things digital twins of environments. We try to make use of these simulation models and AI models and domain knowledge into a point where we can use them to make better decisions. So that's a little bit about, not a little bit, quite a lot about my research. And just, I think it's right that we talk a little bit about what sort of opportunities do we have with engineering and AI in Sri Lanka. So I want to touch upon a few things. So Colombo, we want to be a hub port, right? Colombo, we say, is in a strategic location, but I don't think we are making use of that very well. So how can we make use of the opportunity? India has a good maritime policy that they are going to pursue. The best opportunity for us is to align ourselves with these people to make better use of it. But how are we going to improve that? How are we going to make sure tourism, some aspects of tourism, can be benefiting from this digital activity or from AI activity and so on? And I'm going to talk a little bit about agriculture and also some things that where we may need policy level changes to make sure AI and digitalization goes on to improve the quality of life in Sri Lanka, right? So, as I said, so it's one of those very important transshipment ports in the world. It's quite a lot of activity that is going on, but obviously, what is happening now is that we are losing quite a lot of market share for India, right? So we have to make sure how do we move on from that. Now, how do we even align ourselves with India is a very important question. So just a couple of examples of how things are happening. So, two projects I want to bring to the forefront that are happening in the UK. This is on how in the port of Felixstowe, what they did is they implemented these autonomous robots, right, to move these cranes and so on, the trucks. They are pretty expensive projects, but the point is that even in the UK, these are not highly used at the moment, but they saw the opportunity and they invested 2 or 3 years ago, right? So this is about using 5G systems where they make use of the low delay, low latency in communications to control these robots and synchronize their movement so that you can improve the throughput of these cranes that are used in the ports. So this is a very recent example. And another one is the port of Bristol. What happened was they tracked all the goods in logistics through 5G operations, right? So what happens is using RFID, they track where do the goods come from, say from one free trade zone to another free trade zone to the port, so you know the flow of the goods, right? So what happens is that custom officers do not have to get into these things and measure everything and so on. Everything gets tracked autonomously. And what happens is all of these things can automatically fill up the forms that are required. What happens is your process tends to be very smooth. Right now, it is not happening in Sri Lanka, for example. These are things that you can easily adapt. These are not very expensive technology, right? You just need to have a willingness to do those kind of things. So improving this kind of efficiencies is very important, especially to get cruise ships to come and dock in Colombo Port. Right now, it's a nightmare. Apparently, a custom officer or immigration officer has to fly to the port in Singapore or to India to make sure they stamp each and every passport. This is not how it works in the rest of the world. So how do you digitalize these things are things for us to be thinking about to improve efficiency. Next thing I want to talk about in relation to tourism is, again, with the maritime operations. So this is a map. You can look at the real-time maps about fishing vessels. Where are the fishing vessels around the country? And are they fishing? And do we know who is fishing? So this is a global watching scheme, and Sri Lanka is very good at tracking fishing vessels around, right? But what we don't track is what kind of fish do we capture, right? And during which times do we capture them, and where about in this maritime space are we capturing different fish? Now, this is important because you have super yachts coming into Colombo, and they are requesting, I mean, this is coming down from Sri Lanka, this request is coming down from Sri Lanka. They are requesting for certain fish. And these are people who are paying, who are willing to pay $1,000,000+ rupees for a kilo of certain fish, right? And if you think about it, but we don't know, we don't have the supply chains in place to cater to that. So how do we improve these things? These are very readily available, and Sri Lanka is very good at collecting some of this data. It's just a little step that we can go from there to improve this sort of industry. So tourism has many other examples. I have seen other experts sharing these things online as well as to the opportunities with tourism. But there are a few things that you can do differently, right? So this is very important for sustainability of our fishing resources. So there's a big black market. We know quite a lot of stories about how Indian fishermen came into shores, and you don't know how to control them and so on. There's a loss of revenue and loss of tax revenue that are coming because we are not tracking these things. Right? So tracking them using data collection mechanisms and making sure it is fed into the supply chains are easy wins that we can do. They're not difficult things. It's just that we need we need to have a will to be doing these kind of things. So next, to go into the agriculture space. Good example I can give is in relation to my example with hydrodynamic simulations of flooding mechanisms. Something that is similar that goes in line is the finite element analysis mechanisms, right? So if you are coming from mechanical engineering or civil engineering domains, what we can do is we can stress test certain products and so on. So we are the world's, so Sri Lanka is the world #1 exporter of rubber, natural rubber products. But there's one option for us to export rubber, or another option for us to develop small products out of rubber and send it, right? So the moment you convert this raw material into a product design, your export revenue is 10 times more. Now, one of the main mechanisms of using digital technologies is using finite element analysis and simulation, right? I'm going to give an example again. There's already an investment in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka government made an investment, then 50 million rupees, but now with the devaluation of Sri Lankan rupee, it's around 200 million investment. They gave all the systems in place, brought all the systems, computers, software, paid for everything. Today, it is gathering dust as part of the Rubber Research Institute. So, not because we don't have experts in Sri Lanka. There's a lot of experts who can do this, but there's no willingness to be making use of this technology, right? So it's another example of if you combine these things with artificial intelligence, as I showed you earlier, you can combine these finite element simulations with AI models to do better things, to improve our product development process and so on. These are big opportunities which we can grasp if you want to improve things there. Right? Another thing that I want to touch upon is about the opportunities for customs compliance, so proactive customs compliance. This links in with my current role with the Parliament, where I have a feet into policy. So I understand creating opportunities with AI and making use of these digital technologies is not just the willingness to do these things, or not just about private investment, right? There are lots of companies in Sri Lanka and supply chain in management and logistics who are willing to there are lots of people who are willing to invest. However, there are problems in terms of the policy, which you cannot adopt these technologies. This is a good example. Now, if you think about customs, it's a very tedious operation. You have loads coming in to the ports, and you have to look into how much it is valued at, and then put a tax calculation on it. Now, this is an opportunity for you to digitalize these things. As I showed you in the previous example, you can detect the free movement of goods between trade zones and so on. Right. You need to have some level of trust when it comes to this sort of tracking. We want people to be transparent and say, this is what we are transporting. And you can track them with technology, and you can digitalize this sort of valuation process. Now, we can't do that in Sri Lanka because of this law, which dates back to 1974. So this is called the Ordinance Law. So if you think about it, even the law is called the Ordinance Law of Ceylon or something. Ceylon is a term that we got rid of 70 years ago, right? Now, this is because of this law in 1974. It is entirely in the hands of the customs officer to determine the value of a certain shipment. Now, because of this, there are problems, as you could imagine. I don't want to voice those things over. If it is in the hands of a single person to determine the value of a shipment, there's going to be opportunities for corruption, right? And opportunities for law to be interpreted in different ways, right? And digitalization is an opportunity where you can cut down corruption or cut down this kind of differences at the grassroots level, right? So these are things, but if you were to do that, technology is ready, but our policy is not ready, right? We need to update this policy. We need to change this policy, right? So this is an example where to make sure private investments come into Sri Lanka, that Sri Lanka becomes a hub port which is trusted and which is efficient, right? Just think about how much of time would they have to spend just inspecting a load. What kind of time can you cut down based on this? Or if you can do all of those things, technology is very easy, right? It's already there. But are we willing to do that? It's a question. So finally, I want to talk about this skilled workforce. This was brought about by one of my batchmates, Engineer Bandar, suggested that there's a significant problem with skills in Sri Lanka when it comes to AI workforce. I appreciate that. It's not easy to develop that sort of workforce, and currently we have a significant brain drain. Now, I want to suggest this AI apprenticeships program, which has been extremely beneficial to UK. So the model works like this: you have an organization or a company who is willing to develop AI workforce. So they identify a couple of people who may have a degree from different other area of activity. Let's say economics, one has a degree in engineering. They want to upskill them into AI. Now, what happens is they say, okay, we want to recruit these two people, and they want to update their skill set. What happens is government provides certain money into a university who is providing these degrees, master's degrees or bachelor's degrees, and then this university provides education to these people while they are doing activities within the company, right? So over the course of 2 to 3 years, they finish this apprenticeship program. They get a formal degree from the university, but at the same time, they are doing things that are so valuable to the organization. Now, that model is so impactful because you have people on the floor trying to do things that are useful to that particular organization, right? And at the same time, they are learning skills, right? So there's a level of government incentive that is sent to the organization. There is significant uptake from the people who want to study further, and the organization is going to benefit. So this is a model that we can follow, especially at degree level. So we have it at undergraduate level as well as master's level. And this has been extremely fruitful. So with that in mind, I think I will stop there. And in summary, what we looked at is kind of opportunities, kind of areas that I research on, and what sort of real world applications we are looking at from as a lab that is doing state of the art research, and then coming into discussion with Sri Lankan colleagues of mine, the sort of opportunities that we have that we can benefit if we adopt very basic AI, very basic digital technologies. Thank you very much, and I hope we will have some questions for discussion.
Thank you, Varuna. Really interesting talk. Thank you very much for that. I can't see any questions on the chat, but if anyone want to ask a question related to AI, please unmute and ask your question. Okay, we have one question on the chat. Placing sensors in head, how this will affect the brain?
A good question. So if you just want to detect what is going on in the brain, it doesn't affect anything. You're just reading what is on the skull, but that is just reading out of the brain. And there are ways to stimulate the brain as well, called neural stimulation. Now that what happens is you provide a magnetic field onto the skull, and this magnetic field induces certain currents in certain branches of the brain. that is a heavily regulated area, and there are medical studies that have been done, and the amount of electrical generation is so minute that there hasn't been any sort of a negative impact from that. So that is used to stimulate certain activity, especially for recovery of people and so on. Yes, so that is called neural stimulation. It will not affect the brain.
Thank you, Varuna. Maybe I can go with one question until somebody else get some questions. So, yeah, AI is, I mean, it's everywhere, right? So, there are a lot of advantages of that, but at the same time, it can also use for the malicious kind of intentions, right? The one example that in the area I work is that. You can use deepfake kind of technologies to create videos or voice that very similar to basically the impersonate, right? And bypass this kind of biometric kind of authentication method, that kind of thing, right? So, I mean, I know that there are certain local restriction and guardrails coming in, but do we have any global approach to address this kind of risk?
Yes, very good question, very topical at the moment. Yes, there is regulation at place. People are trying to regulate certain things. Uh, European Union has their AI Act to regulate different branches of artificial intelligence. Now, when it comes to this sort of impersonation, it is clearly against the privacy rules that are existing in EU for your data to be stored against your will and to be used against your will for a purpose that it was not intended, right? And so both the EU AI Act and in the UK, we have what is called the pro-innovation approach for regulation, in the sense our objective is to let people use AI the way they want, but when it comes to an issue like this, they are going to use existing legislation to understand existing law to understand who is breaching what. Now, again, if you think about that, it goes back into the privacy aspects of it. I mean, your GDPRs, right? So at that point, whoever is using this data, whoever is using your voice information, to impersonate you is at wrong. So it's a clear cut case. But on the other hand, if you think about it, can you stop this? Because it is one thing to regulate it. On the other thing, for people to be using, right? So I remember very well. One of my lecturers at Morato one day showed a pen and said, "This is a piece of technology, a pen, a ballpoint pen." He said, "You can use this to write a letter for your advantage, or you can use this to kill a person." So it also depends on the human society to be using these things willingly. Today, we have disinformation that is happening because of the US elections, and I don't know about the Sri Lankan election scene, but maybe there is disinformation that is going on, where you impersonate somebody's video feed. And what happens is lots of people just believe it because they don't even know what AI generated activity are. So can you stop it? Can you enforce? Enforcing it is another thing, right? Yes, it is clearly prohibited. It is clearly against the law. But how do you stop it? How do you enforce it is another thing. Good one.
Thank you, Arun. We have a couple of questions on the
Yeah.
chat, but before I go there, we have Laxman
Yeah.
raised his
Shall
hand.
I ask a question? First of
Yes,
all, I
please.
have to thank you. It's a very good lecture I have followed, and I would like to know the some my friends, they said in developed country they are trying to put some chips on the brain and get the target done in case of targeting some thing. Is it possible anywhere in the world already it is done, the chips to the brain?
Elon Musk has a company called Neuralink, isn't it? Yeah. So they are trying to do this. They are trying to do this, but for ethical purposes. Like, for example, if you think about uh, Parkinson's or dementia kind of things. If you can implant a device and demonstrate improvement, that is a good thing. And there are definitely examples like that. I have seen examples for sure in limited cases where a person who was not able to move their hands and so on were able to use that. I haven't seen a case where they were a blind was able to see, but it is going in that direction. Yes. So I mean, blindness or deafness, these kind of things will not be will not hopefully will not be issues that we humans will have in the next 20 years or so on. With this sort of technology, yes, there is activity, but in limited settings.
Yeah.
As for the exact activities, I'm not sure. Sorry.
They are using for the warfare. Yes.
No, it's not used. It's not used. You can't. I can't speak for the entire world, but certain. I mean, these Western countries are heavily regulated. I mean, there's quite a lot of scrutiny that is going on when it comes to the use of technology. For example, we can't have autonomous weapons. You cannot have a machine that kills another human. It is against the rules of engagement. But what happens is, for example, if you take the drones, they can guide until the last moment. The final button to press to kill another person is almost always, not almost always taken by a human at the operator level. So because there has to be a mechanism to take responsibility, but definitely not brain thing. It's not done for military purposes. At least I don't know. Maybe there is, but not within academia.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Lakshman, for the question,
Very
and
good.
thank you, Varuna,
Yeah.
for the very comprehensive answer. So, in the interest of time, there are a couple of questions I would like to move on. We have a question from Rahul. Which application or services in Sri Lanka are already using AI? I don't know, Varuna, if you know anything or anyone else can chip in there.
I'm pretty sure the banks for automated. I mean, you can't call it necessarily artificial intelligence, but there is a level of uh, detection of fraud activity that is being used by banks for that reason. And then software industry, we are very good in the software industry. You have companies, good examples like WSO2 or Millennium Information Technologies. Maybe there are bits of machine learning that are used. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. But maybe
No,
there are
I
people
think.
in the flow who knows those things.
Yeah, I can add a little bit from my experience in the area I am working is in the CPaaS communication side. So we use AI for the kind of detecting the frauds kind of transaction going through our platforms. I'm pretty sure that Sri Lanka are doing something similar to that, because it's the challenge for every operators to tackle how you detect the phishing and block these kind of kind of malicious kind of contents and other things. So definitely there will be something in the operator area, the mobile operator area related to that. All
That's a
right.
good example. Can I add a couple of things?
Yes, please.
When I used to work at Dialog in 2007, 2008 time, I was working in international operations. So we had a telecom switch, which was capturing all the incoming traffic and so on. And there will be a person in the operations department who are looking into any customer complaints if they have a call drops or something. It is only at the customer, when the customer is complaining a lot, they go and look into if there was a link failing and so on. So what we did, during my time was we took these call detail records and automated the process to analyze what is going on. So before a customer complains, we know a link is failed. But that again is not an example of AI, artificial intelligence. It's just an example of using data analytics at the very heart of technical operations. So to avoid delays, or to improve customer satisfaction in telecoms operations. I'm pretty sure people have done better things afterwards.
Yeah, Varuna and myself, both ex-Dialog employees. So next question is bit related to that one as well. So Indik asking, recently SL government appointed Dr. Hans as a digital economy specialist. So do you plan any project with them?
Yeah, Dr. Hans was my first CEO of the organization. I think one of the best personalities of Sri Lanka when it comes to digital technologies and so on. You can't deny that. Do I plan any projects with them? It depends on how Sri Lanka wants to use me, and there are many other experts around. I'm pretty sure there are many experts on this call itself who are willing to help. It depends on what kind of strategy do they have. Have I spoken with people? Yes, of course. I have spoken with potentially incoming digital economy minister or the ICTA team who would potentially come and so on. Yes, I have definitely spoken with them. I have shared some of these things with them as well. But then I think there is quite a lot of willingness in Sri Lanka to do something. But remember, politics is just a very small lever. You have this big machine called the society. Your incomes and outgoings are what you try to control, right? You try to improve them so that your tax revenue is increased, so that your machine gets better and better, and so on. What politics can do at the moment in Sri Lanka is very limited, right? Very limited. So, but if you take digitalization as a mechanism to improve the quality of life, there are quite a lot of gains that you can gain, right? Now, if you take the simplest example of digital ID, now it is not some, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's very easy to implement these things. Now, will that cut down the queues of the passport office? Absolutely, yes. You don't need queues. You don't have queues in the UK. It's not the most efficient system in the world either. But can you improve it? Definitely, right? Now, what is important is, are people willing to accept those things? It will take time, right? How do you drive the private investments and innovation ecosystem is created with the right policy decisions, right? I gave you a good example of customs, right? We need foreign revenue. Now, can we digitalize and make sure inefficiencies are completely eradicated? Technology is there. Technology is not rocket science. Technology is easily adaptable. I mean, I'm pretty sure a startup in Sri Lanka can do the technology that is required. We don't need billions of rupees, right? But is there willingness to do that? That's a different story. Because remember, people need to be willing to accept these things, right? That's for sure.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. Unfortunately, we out of time. So we said it's 1 hour, but we will try to answer this. I will try. I will get the question and I will publish that with the recording somewhere. So on our website probably. I will work with Varuna and others to get that. So the word of thanks, Varuna. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I hope this is very useful for our young graduates and engineers working in Sri Lanka. I hope you find this session useful. And thank you, Professor Ranjit Disanaik, President of IESL Sri Lanka, and the team there for helping us to organize this event. and also the DPM Chandan, our president here, and the other members for helping arranging this event. And I saw one time we passed the 100 people on this webinar, so I count that as a very successful event, especially being our first event. There are a couple more we have scheduled. So yeah, stay tuned for the news on that one. Thank you, Varun, again. Thank you, everyone who joined to
Thanks a
make
lot.
this success.
Thanks for inviting. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.